So after putting the welded exhaust back up under the car again, what I did was I wrapped some masking tape around it, nothing pretty, but, and then I drew a line here where it matches up with the elbow joint that I have. And at this stage, you don't really have to worry kind of so much about that it doesn't like blend in or anything like that. It's just the main thing is to get that angle right and cut it off the angle grinder. So I've left it this type of a shape here. I mean, there's lots of ways of making exhaust pipes. I'm not saying this is right or anything. But this is what I'm going to offer up to the car now again. And I'm going to offer up my elbow into it. And after I put my elbow up, I'm expecting to have to cut that around the curve here to blend in with the elbow. And what I'll do then is I'll do similar cuts along here, just like I did in the turbo side of it, the connection, like this way here if you remember, and roll it in with a hammer and basically weld it up. I gave the inside of this guy too a quick lick of a deburr tool. Yeah, it came up pretty well. I'm not going to win any prizes or anything for beauty, but the main thing is that it's no sharp edges or anything like that. Don't think any of this stuff is like detrimental to engine power or anything. The main thing is the exhaust gets out, and it's going back out the same diameter tubing. Actually, even it's going back out the same pipe, so I don't foresee any ill effects. So I'll continue on. So after offering it up, then you can see I have some corresponding black marks, lines drawn on my 45-degree bend. I've done a little bit of a cut on it. So this guy fits on here, line up with these marks, nice and easy. And I've cut off a bit of the tape there to allow me to put a little bit of weld there. I put a little bit of weld, go back under the car again, offer it back up, stick in the bolts, just make sure I'm happy with the bend, tweak it a bit left, bit right, up, down, whatever needs to be done. And it's off then, pull off the rest of the tape and weld around. And I'll cut the exposed piece, the excess pipe then, in a similar fashion to this guy here. Run a couple runs of the angle grinder across it, bend it over with a hammer, cut as you bend, keep it all nice and tidy, and wrap it and make myself a bend there. And that is, I would think, one of the trickier parts of the exhaust done. So that's down from the engine, in under the car, and it would be just into the straight section, ready for a nice flexible joint here, and then on straight back with the rest of the exhaust to the back of the car. So taking a few hours. It would of course be very handy if you had a lift. I don't have a lift, so I'm relying on the car being jacked up and just mucking away. So I lined up my lines on my paper tape. Just put a quick bit of weld there. Nothing pretty, but I can get to see what the overall shape looks like, I guess. So now I'll offer it up. I'm getting a bit closer now. Got the exhaust marked up again. I have to take it off again. Give it a small little nip in the grinder, the weld I had put on. Put it back in, just readjust a small bit. So now you can see I'm getting to the point of closing it off. It's not going to be a mandrel bent exhaust or anything like that. But I think what I'm doing, you get the gist of it there. I'm just cutting slits in the metal. I'll just get it down here. So this would have been the piece that was sticking out here earlier. It's been sticking up something like that. So just kind of roughly marked it up, cut it off, and then just start tapping with the hammer around and cutting it with the grinder as I went. It's no harm to leave it too long. It's easy to cut bits off, harder to add bits on. So I'll finish up now by running welds across all these guys all around here. And that would be hopefully the awkwardest part of the exhaust made. And I'm looking at the exhaust bolted up. It's difficult to get a good picture here with the old phone lying under the car. But anyway, I think you'll see what I mean there. You can see the distance I have from the CV boot to the exhaust there. Got plenty of room there. I put my hand in there, no problem. I can always make up a bit of a shield on the exhaust, I guess, if that's becoming a problem. I don't think it will though. And the same for the steering gaiter here. I got plenty of room for my hands in around there. So I think that'll be good. Now this pipe of course is rigid. It's bolted up. And I have it coming back down under the car. And I've kind of kept it towards the right hand side of the car. And the reason I did that was, if I can get into the shot here, is these are the gear change cables. So I put these guys in just to see where I'll run the exhaust pipe, and I'd like to try and keep it inside in the tunnel of the car as much as possible. And of course that's just to make sure I have plenty of ground clearance. So I've kind of put that guy in there at an angle, kind of in close in here, over to the kind of chassis part of the car there. I have my fuel lines going in under there. It's kind of like where they would have been originally. You can see my copper lines go back to the back wheel. Anyway, so when I got this far, I was looking at the original Mark IV GTI exhaust, and of course, like I said, this guy's got one lambda sensor here up this direction, but of course there's also one just after the cat in the Mark IV GTI. Now there's two cats inside that exhaust. It seems to be like two stages, so it goes through the first honeycomb, or the first catalytic converter, and then the second lambda sensor is there before it goes through the second lambda, or before it goes through the second part of the catalytic converter. So after that, then there is no more checks done by the ECU. So I figure myself that the best thing to do is to keep the first part of the cat and put in the second sensor after that. And my thinking is that I don't want the thing going into any sort of limp mode or anything like that. I want to try and keep it running as good as possible, because of course if you get rid of the catalytic converter completely, that sensor is definitely feeding back to the engine, and if it's seeing that there is no change after going through the catalytic converter, of course it's going to flag up an error there. If that error is actually detrimental to the run of the engine or not, I'm not too sure. I guess if you were going aftermarket ECU, you could just tune that out. You wouldn't have that problem, but in this case I'm sticking with the Volkswagen ECU for now anyway. So I put in the exhaust, the gear selector cables here, and that's Mark IV stuff, so that actually went in really easy. Just made a little cardboard template, which I'll show in a minute. But I think what I'm going to do here now next to my exhaust is, here is going to be where I'm going to put the flexible joint, or maybe cut back a little bit further and put in a slight bend into this exhaust to kind of point it more away. Currently it's kind of looking at the gear selector unit, so I'm going to point it away from it and to go down the side of it, which there's ample room for a pipe down the side there, and keep it close enough to the floor of the car and underneath. Let it hang down a little bit, make sure a bit of air gets in around it and stuff. But that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to actually cut the first part of the catalytic converter off the exhaust pipe and bend up some metal to go from that diameter back down to the exhaust pipe diameter, like it would in the original Mark IV exhaust. So keep the flow there, and I'll have a part of the catalytic converter. So I'm hoping that I won't have any ECU then orange lights coming up telling me that it's not working correctly or something like that. So I'll jump into the car now and we'll have a quick look at how the gear stick mounts up. So I'm back inside in the car, and here we have the Mark IV GTI shifter. This goes in relatively easy. This is just a little piece of plate here that I just bent around, just did some cuts out of it here, just to allow it to go around the aluminium housing, and these are going back into the two bolts that are the original bolts for holding this guy into the Mark IV. So on that bracket there, what I've done is I've just kind of bent these guys over at 90 degrees, and they're roughly 10-12 millimeters down, so that I'm creating a lift for the aluminium housing to fit into the car. The width of this is spot on from the original Mark I Golf. There's no hassle there. There is a small bit that needs to be cut out near the top, and how I figured that worked that out was I got myself this piece of cardboard and I fitted it down over the bolts and cut around it for the shape of the Mark IV shifter thing. And of course I noticed straight away here, I just cut an extra bit out here so you can see the difference, but I noticed straight away of course that towards the front of the car here, the front, this needs about 6 millimeters cut across here out to allow the Mark IV shifter to sit up properly. And then by marking the holes through my piece of cardboard with a marker, and I drilled like 9 or 10 mil holes, and it's got bolts with like washers effectively on them. Just run them down home. So these are the Mark IV studs, and back here I'm using the 2 holes for the Mark IV bolts, and everything is in nice and tight. And of course the seal all around it for stopping fumes and stuff coming into the cabin, all of that fits into the Mark I nicely. If Volkswagen had made this casting like 6 mil shorter, this would literally almost like drop into the car for you. But it fits in very well. It works really simple. The cables are nice length. There's no real excess hanging down underneath the car or anything like that. So it all works out pretty good. Another thing that has to be mounted is the coolant bottle. So the pipework for the Mark IV is already over the right hand side of the engine. So I've got myself a new bottle here. It was €10 new, versus breakers look for more than that. So I'm going to make up a little bracket here to attach this onto the inner wing so that it's bolted in, kind of like a factory type look. So one of the pipes going in is the bottom one here, and the second one here then, which is the overflow, which was back on here. And these are over here beside the engine anyway, so it just makes complete sense just to mount them here. I suppose as a note here, all you got to do really is make sure that this bottle is higher than the radiator and higher than the cylinder head ideally. So while they might look there like they're kind of level, it is above the cylinder head, but that part of the cylinder head that we're looking at here is just really the rocker cover. The valve gear and all that is under that, so there is a certain amount of coolant around the valve gear. So as long as this is, if the blue cap, in my opinion, was flush with the top of the engine, all will be well. But I'm going to keep it slightly above, so I'm definitely keeping the coolant bottle as the highest point in the coolant system. So that way you're going to get the air out here in the bottle as opposed to get trapped in the system somewhere. So that's where I'm going with that. So I've kind of decided, without straining the pipework or anything, might as well use it. I'm going to mount it in here. So I've got to make up myself 2 little brackets. One bracket's going to be for the 2 screws here, and the other little bracket I'm going to make up is for this kind of like a leg type feature that's in at the bottom of the bottle here, to get that back into the car. So in the Mark IV, that just literally sits that down into a hole, 2 screws attached, coolant bottle on, and we can run the standard sensor in as well, which is already inside the coolant bottle. So I'm going to head over to the workbench now. So back over to the workbench, and I'm going to make up my little coolant bottle bracket. Could just make 2 L's, I guess, and just tack them onto the car. But I think I'm going to put a little bit of effort into a little bit of shape. So it's back to the old cardboard templates here. So I've kind of marked out there roughly, so I want it to kind of fit in around like that. Without the inner side of it here, my metal piece, you don't really want that touching off the coolant bottle, because it definitely will, from vibration, it will wear a hole in it eventually and it'll start leaking or crack or something like that. So to find that kind of shapes where you can just draw around with a pencil, of course, initially you're going to start off with a piece of cardboard that's kind of more square edged, and you're going to be going, oop, just cut a bit out like that. If you use these guys, these are kind of like a shape finder, not sure what the exact proper name for it is, but basically you can push this guy in until you find the shape of the bottle. Now the one I have isn't quite long enough, but just do it in 2 steps. So what you end up with, of course, along this edge here is the shape of the bottle beneath the brackets. So you can transfer that then back into your piece of cardboard. Not exactly cut out there perfectly with the scissors. So from there, I'm going to just get a piece of metal, chop around. I've got a black line here where I'm going to put a fold, and this line here is where I'm going to like have the end of my bracket, if you follow me. So this will of course go straight over here and like 90 degrees there. The cardboard's just not big enough, and I'll be just cutting it down, follow this line here, be down here, and that will leave me a nice bit of purchase for the car. Then I'll have a nice piece of metal left out, and I'll be able to tack that onto the side of the inner wing, and we'll give it a little lick of paint then afterwards, and it'll look kind of factory looking. So the next bracket I'll make after that, then once I get top one mounted, is this guy here. So he's just like a simple hole But again, the bracket's just going to have to be like tacked into the correct location, so it'll be easier to find that. It's the kind of thing that you'll never calculate really, just by fitting this, making this, fit it to the car, fit the bottle, cut a bit of cardboard out, make something to fit this little guy here, and hey presto, we'll have a Mark IV coolant bottle inside in the car, which will have the right pressure cap, etc., and all fits in, and it will work. So I'm starting to cut in the metal. I'm getting close. I just said maybe something that's worth maybe mentioning. This is just like a regular G-clamp that's clamped into my vise. And I find this handy for cutting this type of shape. And the idea is, of course, that you have access to all this area around here. And I like using these kind of flappy wheels for this type of stuff. So basically, you can use the actual curve of the grinding disc to kind of aid you, as opposed to kind of like attacking like this, which kind of makes a bit of a mess of it. By turning it like this, it makes it a lot more controllable to get the shape you want. And you can get it in around there. You get the idea. So the G-clamp facilitates that. So you're looking directly down on top of your part, and it makes it a bit easier, I think, as opposed to clamping this in vertical on the vise and trying to bend over to look to see where the curvy line has gone. So while the cardboard template is a good way to start, there's nothing like this guy here either, so he basically fits in there. So this is not going to be absolutely perfect or anything, but you get the gist of you can make relatively quickly a nice shape, something that kind of like looks a bit more fit for purpose. My water bottle bracket's coming together now. I did some more CAD work. So this piece of cardboard here, and a bent up and creased. Oh, looks like a bit of advertisement for Arthur Guinness. And this guy fits on the water bottle, fits in there. So on my bracket now, I've got my screws on this guy. So it's not a perfect fit or anything. The whole idea was just a little bit of location, really. I've got the metal kind of tapered back here, and I did that with the ball end of the hammer. Just going to put the metal like so. Up on top of it, smack, job done. Takes away the sharp edges. I guess I could go rubber grommet that there as well. And I'll see if I can locate one. If I can, I'll just flatten this guy back again and put a rubber grommet instead, because it will go in the middle. Because the material is light enough, it's only 1 millimeter, it's easily bent. So plenty strong to hold the bottle in there. I've got 3 holes up here for welding in, 1 hole here for welding. The little small hole corresponds to a hole that's already in the car that I had built for something else at some point, where I had a little pop rivet. So what I did was, when I was getting my location, I put back on the bonnet, just left it on loosely, and lifted up the bottle until I had a little bit of clearance between the cap and the bonnet, and I just marked where that little small hole is here then, and I stuck a pop rivet on it. So that way then I was able to kind of, it was handy for a bit of location rather than trying to be holding things in there and holding everything to one hand and all that kind of stuff. So it worked out fairly well that way. So I'll put a bit of a shot of welding into that hole there, just to finish off the hole. Those 4 holes there, like I say, are for welding onto the car. So my intent is to weld this guy on and leave him on. So this guy won't be coming off the car. There's nothing too hectic here. Just a bit of welding there, a bit of quick rub of a flappy wheel, grinding off, and that'll hold the bottle in for me nicely. I guess another small task done. Water bottle in. And see there the way the bottom of it kind of, you can get this fella to focus on around there, right? I think everybody knows what the gist of it is anyway. So it kind of curves in around the bottle. Bottom leg just sits in. The top of it just sits in there with 2 screws, just like kind of from the factory. So I guess that's done. While I was welding, I'm doing a little bit of grinding there. I covered up the engine with an old mat. Very handy things to have lying around. Stop sparks getting into things where they shouldn't be. So what I'll do now is I'll take off my water bottle, put it away for safekeeping, and give the little bracket I made up a shot of high zinc spray paint. I already did the back of it, a bit of a spray. I suppose some of it's going to get burnt off during the welding, but there's only so far you can go, I suppose. You just put some spray and hopefully it runs down the back of it and protects it for the future.